Hello everybody, it's me Nate, aka Devil Dog, and I'm back with another game review. This time I'm reviewing the First Berserker, Khazan. It's actually pronounced Khazan. It was published by Nexon and developed by Neopol, I think that's how you say it, and it released on March 27th of 2025 for the PC, the Xbox Series X and S, and PlayStation 5. Now, this game is really unique because it's based off of something known as Dungeon Fighter Online that worldwide had like over 800 million players that have been playing the game. But this one, the story of this takes place 800 years before the events of DFO. And this is, once again, a hardcore Souls-like hack and slasher where you play as the great General Khazan, who after being falsely accused of treason is banished. So naturally, you end up going on an epic quest to redeem yourself. And along the way, you get possessed by a demon because you pretty much die at the beginning and you get possessed by this demon. And that's kind of where you get the name of the Berserker. Now, as for overall gameplay, this one actually plays a lot better than I was expecting. I myself have never really been a fan of Souls-like games, but I actually like this one. In this, you get to use different weapons, including spears, great swords, and also dual wielding different swords as well. And you, along the way, can naturally upgrade each and every single weapon, and you're constantly getting different gear pieces that are dropping to upgrade your character as well there. And each weapon you have also has different skills that you can combine with different gear pieces and stuff that allow you to craft and tailor a combat style to your liking. So if you like to have like a great sword, which does a massive amount of damage, but is super slow, you can actually like boost it by using certain gear pieces and other stuff to modify it to make the character play a lot better for you. So it's actually quite interesting, the overall amount of tweaking you can actually do with this game. Now, the thing is, much like any sort of Souls-like game, this has mechanics very similar. You got these swords that you interact with that are save points that help you where you can upgrade your character. Naturally, they're similar to the bonfires, to where the moment you access these, any enemies you have killed respawn and come back to life. And you can fall to your death and you lose your souls. I forget what they call them in this, but you have to get back to where you died to actually get your souls back. You don't lose your gold and gear pieces or nothing, though, so that's kind of cool. And the other thing I've kind of noticed, too, is much like some of these other Souls-like games, it's actually not recommended to actually, spam and kill enemies to level up, because as you level up, the enemies around you level up as well, and they get new abilities that they can attack you with. So, I think that's kind of been for just about any Souls-like game that you really don't want to grind your character. You just want to, play through it. Now, as for the controls with this one plays super smooth. I've played other games like this, but they've been kind of like chunky and janky. This one seems to play a lot smoother than I was expecting coming from Nexon, because normally they're kind of known for games that really aren't that good. And I have to say, this one's actually really good. You got your standard issue abilities like you normally would have, your dash, your ability to run, hard attack, light attack, parries, dodges, and along with that, naturally, you got your stamina meter, so you got to make sure your meter stays up or you're going to get weak and tired and not be able to keep attacking or block the enemy. 3 main weapon types, like I said earlier, your dual wield, your javelins, and your big giant swords and stuff. Now, the other thing I noticed is, my goodness, this game has a large amount of unlockable skills, and you can't actually reset them and actually pick different skills, which I kind of like, because you can actually make different combinations of skills and gear and stuff like that. Like, I had it set up to where my spear, you only have a limited amount of spears that you use, like, I think, spirits or to activate them. But I had it set up with my spear to where it would automatically break the defense of the enemy, especially bosses when I was attacking them. And you can actually mix and match and build your character with the gear sets with certain weapons to where you can downright create your character to be insanely overpowered, which actually helps in a game like this because this game is very brutally difficult. Now, once you die enough times, it offers you an easy mode, but the easy mode is still challenging as hell as well. But honestly, this game honestly will stomp you in the head. And the other thing I'd point out, which is unique about this, is the odd combination of high-res textured level design and like weird cel-shaded characters and enemies. And oddly enough, it kind of works in this. The cel-shaded characters and enemies actually blend nicely with the backgrounds and the level design to where I just thought it looked pretty damn cool, especially up close. It straight up looks like a comic book. And so they did really good. Now, I've never really been a fan of when they do cel-shaded graphics, but this one was done right. Now, hands down, I have to say, this game has got some great boss battles. Definitely a challenging, very challenging game. And the other thing, I was worried at first because some of the cutscenes were just like still framed, but no, it's got a lot of wonderfully acted cutscenes in this game that are very, very good. Visual fidelity, great cutscenes, a decent story. It's kind of confusing, but at least it has a story. Now, I'm going to give you, before I get a major rundown, I got to say some pros and cons. First of all, pros, the graphics, it looks great. The control bosses all have telegraphed, easy, noticeable attack patterns. It doesn't mean they're not difficult. You still have to figure out their attack patterns, and some of these bosses have so many different attacks that it's actually kind of nerve-wracking figuring them out. But they make it very, very easy to notice when they're going to actually do a certain attack. And once you figure it out, it makes it a lot easier to be able to beat these bosses. Now, I wouldn't say this is a con about the game, but I have to point it out. This is another one of these perfect blocking parry fest precision type games. Honestly, it's one of those where, much like most Soulsborne and Souls-like titles, it focuses heavily on your ability to do like a perfect block or a perfect parry in order to come back to do your attack. One thing I kind of wish is that you could switch between your weapons on the fly, but you can't do that. So that's kind of a little bit of disappointment. But the other thing I also have to point out is I think this actually is heavily inspired. I'm gonna be nice. I think it's heavily inspired from Neo. And the reason why is so much aspects of Neo seems like they just kind of copied it for this game. Like where the world hub is, the way it's set up, it's not an open world game, but it's a large area. But it's like a central hub with different areas that go out on that. Some of the side quests or the design of the side quests are almost identical to Neo. Honestly, they really are. But those are just little minor things. I don't think that that's really copying. I think it's just paying homage to, because it worked in Neo, but they do seem awfully similar to this. Now, the other thing I did notice is this has a huge list of enemy variety. So many different enemies as you go through and fighting them, and they're different. I was impressed by the sheer enemy variety. That, hands down, in a game, I'm always love when you actually have something like that. Now, overall size of this game, it consists of like 16 main story missions that have 16 bosses. So each main mission has their own main boss in this giant area. And now one thing I noticed also is each boss randomly will drop specific gear pieces. So if you want to farm the bosses to actually get a full set of gear that you can use to modify your character, you'll have to replay and beat these bosses over and over again. But much like I said earlier, every time you level up, all the enemies and bosses level up too. That way it stays challenging. The only real way you can make the game easier for you is, like I said, if you custom build your character in a certain way. It gives you an upper hand, but it's still, even at that point, difficult. You still need to pay attention and know how to counter and fight these monsters. And as for the game world, like I said, it's 16 main missions set in 4 different regions of this world with the central hub. And all kinds of different side quests and other stuff that you can do as well. And overall game length, you're looking at around 20 to 25 hours long. So it sticks around, but it doesn't overstay its welcome. It doesn't have the same amount of bosses of like Wukong or whatever it is, Black Myth. But honestly, it's got enough. And honestly, I love the fact that the main challenge in this, don't get me wrong, the levels, while they look great, some of them are kind of bland and boring. And the monsters you fight along the way are challenging. But to me, it just seemed like the main focus is the bosses. Hands down, the bosses are the ones that put up the most fight. And they should. They're bosses. Now, as for overall cost of this game, it'll set you back $60 for the regular version of it, which ain't bad. You can get a special collector's version for $70. And, of course, they had some pre-order bonuses, like you could play the game a couple days early. As far as I know, there's no real microtransactions or any DLC. Maybe they might come out with something in the future. But honestly, in the end, can I actually recommend the First Berserker, Khazan? Yes, I can, especially if you love super challenging Souls-like titles. Please leave in the comments below if you agree or disagree with me, or if there's something I forgot to mention about this game. Please give me a thumbs up if you like this review. Please subscribe to my channel, and of course here at Devil Dog Gaming, we always end our videos by saying, have fun, play hard, and remember people, the devil is in the details. Peace out until next time.